Hopefully I didn't scare you. Listen, I have got to talk to you about saving money on AWS, okay? I can't let you just launch workloads on AWS and not be cost optimized. So I have done a few posts here lately on how to save money on AWS, and I'm going to do another one here right now. So I want to talk to you about AWS savings plans. You might already be familiar with reserve instances. Let me give you a quick recap on those. Reserve instances are typically aligned to EC2 or Redshift or RDS as an example. And you would commit to either a 1-year term or a 3-year term, and then there would be various increments in terms of whether you wanted to do no money up front, partial up front, or all up front. And in exchange for that commitment and based in combination with how much money you put up front or didn't, you would get a discount across the board for how your reserve instances were lined up to your compute resources. However, with reserve instances, there were some constraints, and they varied, but at a high level, there was a little bit less flexibility in terms of, what region you were going to be in, what AZ you were going to be in, what instance family you were going to be aligned to. Within the reserve instances, there were some different types of reserve instances that you could select, but what happened was savings plans were invented as a response to some of the perceived constraints of the reserve instances. So I'm going to talk to you about the savings plans now. So in case you don't know, savings plans are a flexible pricing model that offers lower prices compared to on-demand resources in exchange for a usage commitment. Now this sounds starting to sound very similar to the reserve instances. However, there are greater degrees of flexibility in the savings plans. So let's jump into this right now. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how it works. Here's a diagram here. So savings plans, most of my customers jump into AWS Cost Explorer, and AWS Cost Explorer will review your prior usage of all your compute in your account and make a recommendation in terms of what type of savings plans you should commit to get the deepest savings. Let me jump over into another view here from our frequently asked questions. And I'm getting this off of the AWS website. So, what types of savings plans does AWS offer to reduce your bill? Well, there's 3 of them. The first one is the compute savings plans. The cool thing about the compute savings plans is that it's going to help you reduce your costs up to 66%. These plans automatically apply to all EC2 usage. And here's the really cool part. Regardless of the instance family, the size of the compute, the availability zone you want to launch in, the region, the operating system you want to run, or the tenancy, whether it's shared or dedicated. And also, get this, also aggregates your compute across Fargate, which is a serverless container orchestration platform, as well as the Lambda, which is a serverless compute function as a service platform on AWS. Now, how cool is that? So if you're in the midst of running EC2 and you're thinking about modernizing your application or going over to Lambda or maybe using Elastic Kubernetes service or any of these decisions, your compute will still be aggregated together and your savings plan will still apply. So a lot of flexibility there. The second one is the EC2 instance savings plans, and this specifically only applies to EC2. So it's a lot of the flexibility that I mentioned with the compute savings plan, but only in regards to EC2. So if you want to run like Lambda and Fargate and all that, EC2 instance savings plans, as the name applies, only applies to EC2. The thing is, though, for your savings, you can get up to 72% savings there, which is about, 6 percentage points better than a compute savings plan. But the trade-off is you lose some of that flexibility with being able to lump in, Lambda or Fargate in there. The third type of savings plan, which is a little bit on the newer side, launched earlier this year in 2021, is the Amazon SageMaker Savings Plan. Let's go ahead and lift up to this here. So the Amazon SageMaker Savings Plan is also a flexible pricing model, but it specifically relates to Amazon SageMaker. Now, there's EC2, and then there are SageMaker instances. And these plans here for SageMaker will apply directly to your SageMaker compute usage. And the savings here for those Amazon SageMaker plans are up to 64%. So that's a very substantial savings. This is relative to on-demand prices. So for your machine learning ops pipelines that are fairly static, you're constantly, building, training, and deploying models, you would be best served by looking at your Amazon SageMaker savings plans to map to that. So yeah, this was just really wanted to bring your attention to these AWS savings plans and to let you know this is additional flexibility as compared to reserve instances. In regards to reserve instances, relational database service, and things like Redshift are still aligned to our reserve instances. So if you think about it, when you stand up a database, that really isn't a transient workload. That's typically in place because you got your application levels as well as your web interface levels that need to tie back into that database. Redshift, a data warehousing petabyte scale service up to exabyte with the Redshift spectrum typically isn't a transient workload as well, which means the reserve instances that offer you a great savings as compared to on-demand apply better there. So I'll put a link to this information down in the comments below for your deeper review. You can feel free to go in self-service and look at AWS Cost Explorer to get your recommendations, as well as I highly recommend reaching out to your AWS account team. If you have one, you should have one, and they can facilitate a deeper conversation. The one thing that I'll tell you before I sign off is, before you buy any savings plans, what you want to do first is to make sure that your account is already optimized. So that is to say, if you have anything that's running that you don't need, shut it down. The best way to save money on AWS is to shut things down you no longer need. Once you've optimized all of that, then you want to layer on your savings plans for the workloads where the compute is going to be fairly consistent. For the spiky workloads, in terms of some additional compute to facilitate elasticity, that's where on demand is good for that length of time, and or spot instances, which can save you up to 90%. But I'll stop there. I know I've given you a lot of information. Also, feel free to ask questions in the comments. I monitor these posts regularly, and I'm happy to respond to any questions you may have. Hope you have a great day. Thank you for your time and attention, and let's save some money on AWS.